Andy Warhol, we'll talk about him first. How many of you have a picture? How many of you have pictures that I've taken of you and you got them back? How many? So I need to take your picture. I'll get your pictures to you tomorrow. They'll be laying on the back table. And the people who are not here today, I'm going to meet with them tomorrow around this time, at least a couple of them. We've communicated that we're going to meet in here so they can get their materials. We can talk about their binders, and I'll take their picture and get that to them too. So Andy Warhol, he, as a little boy, was very sick. His limbs shook and his color started to change. He started to lose the pigment of his skin. So his mom kept him home from school. She didn't send him to school. She babied him. He was her favorite. So he got to stay home and hang out with his mom, who was an artist. She would read to him. She'd let him look at comic books. And he would read magazines about the lifestyle of famous people in the magazines. And he knew when he grew up, he wanted to be famous. He wanted to be rich, and he wanted to be an artist. And that's exactly what happened to him. Andy Warhol was famous for taking images that he did not initially create and repeating them over and over again with silk screening process. So how many of you have seen the Campbell's soup can, either painted by him or a series of maybe 100 Campbell's soup cans all in one poster or painting? Have any of you seen Andy Warhol's art on display, like at the Chicago Museum of Art? They have a wonderful exhibit there of Andy Warhol's work. So he would take one item, and it started out as a supermarket item, like Brillo pads to scrub dishes with, or Campbell's soup, or just things, maybe a Pepsi can, things that you would see every day, and he would repeat it over and over again. He felt like when you watch the news, you hear the same story repeated over and over again. When you drive down the road and you see a billboard, you then see the billboard again and again. You see that same advertisement. So that's where he got this idea to repeat that same image over and over again. He also did it with movie stars, their portraits. So movie stars would have him do silkscreen paintings of them, repeated over and over again. But also, normal people became famous because they went to him for a portrait done in his style. So one of the projects that we're going to do today is going to be taking a portrait of you, and you're going to use marker on your portrait. So I'm just going to grab your markers for a minute. I printed out 4 pictures of each of you. Some of you have the same picture, and you'll have to repeat that picture over and over again, but you can use different colors. Some of you have 4 different pictures because you're goofy and silly, and we got some fun ones that are going to look good in one picture, like glued together so that you've got your 4 images kind of like this. Except if we glue them together on a piece of paper, they're not going to fit in your notebook. So you can just add color to them so that you know how to do it, and stick them in the sleeve of your notebook with your Andy Warhol lesson plan. And when you do this project with your students and you take their picture and capture some of their different personalities, sticking their tongue out or laughing or being serious, whatever you do with them, there are 4 different personalities, or just a picture of them where it's all the same, it doesn't matter. You can have them glue it onto a larger piece of paper and display it in the room, and give them a little bit of ownership of the room. They love seeing their picture on the wall in your classroom. So you're just going to take a color, whatever color you choose, And actually, before you do this, you may want to open your computers in a minute and look at some examples of Andy Warhol's art where he did screen printing of Marilyn Monroe or Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, some of the famous people that he printed, and look and see how he added color. So you can actually color your face. You can make your skin all one color. You can see with women, he gave them eyeshadow. So if you want to add eyeshadow, you can. So this is not very well done, but you can go through with marker. I'll do that better in a minute. You can go back over your lips. You could add a color for your shirt. Usually when I do this with my students, I have them choose 3 colors to repeat in each. Because if you just give them a thing of markers and say go at it, sometimes too many colors turns out a little bit wild and messy. It can get pretty cluttery if you're not careful. So, and then you can repeat colors. So if I used pink on her lips, I could go back in and use pink on her hair. So if you wanted to go in with the blue eyeshadow, you can, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But when you look at his art, you'll see the eyeshadow area. So then I could go in and use different colors over here. This could be a good lesson where you talk about maybe warm colors, cool colors, complementary colors. It doesn't matter. Or you can just let them choose whatever colors they feel like using on their picture. So you're just going to use markers and add color to your face, to your shirt, to your hair, eyeshadow if you want, whatever you choose. And that is just simply done with marker. Like I said, with little kids, be careful, because if you just let them go with the markers, you end up with every single color, and then it suddenly looks like a mess. One thing that does help is to make the skin with a lighter color. If you put blue on the skin, you kind of lose the whole image in there. So a lighter color on the skin works best. Okay, Andy Warhol was famous for having an art studio in New York City that was the up and coming location for everybody to hang out and party. So he called his studio the Factory. So if you hear about Andy Warhol, you'll hear about his studio, which is the Factory. Also, he coined the phrase, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. How many of you have heard that phrase before? Everyone will have their 15 minutes of fame. That was Andy Warhol. So that's just a tiny bit of information about Andy. And just a fun little project that you're going to do. You're just going to add marker to your pictures and then stick them in the sleeve. You don't necessarily have to put them all together on a piece of paper. Okay, the next artist that we're going to talk about is Mondrian. And so how many of you, this looks kind of familiar. Okay, so Mondrian was influenced by his dad and his uncle. They were both artists. So he grew up surrounded by artists. He became an art teacher, like me. And while he was teaching art, he did his own paintings. But his paintings didn't start out like this. They started out with what he was familiar with. They started out as paintings, oil on canvas, of things that he saw in the country, barns, cows, windmills, just things that he saw every day. He was influenced in the beginning by the Fauvism period. Somebody raise your hand and tell me, what is Fauvism? Do you remember hearing that word? We talked about it with another artist, with Matisse. Matisse,
Wild beast.
yes, wild beast. Fauvism, they were using vibrant colors, and they were known as the wild beast, the artists who were using these really bright, misplaced colors that weren't realistic. So they got the term wild beast from that. Good job. So he did have this Fauvism influence on his paintings. Of course, you can't tell on this. And so he would paint a windmill and the background was completely red and the windmill was completely blue. So it was just unrealistic colors, and you could tell exactly what it was. But because the colors were unrealistic, what kind of art was that? Abstract. So abstract means you can tell what it is, it's just not realistic. Good job. So his art started to evolve. He found the Cubism style. And Cubism was founded by what artist? Picasso. So Picasso found this Cubism style, and it influenced Mondrian, but he still had a subject matter in here. He was still painting trees and things that were real. You just couldn't tell, it wasn't realistic, but he still had the subject matter in there. He then finally let go of that. He let go of trying to put an image in his paintings, and then he started breaking it up into cubes, rectangles, like this, eliminating the subject. So now he's moved on to non-objective art. Write that down. Can you guys remember what non-objective is? Talked about it a little bit with Matisse.
You can't tell what it is.
You can't tell what it is, and the artist doesn't have to explain it. They don't have to have a subject matter. It doesn't have to have a meaning. It's just art. It's just rectangles. Non-objective. So then he took it a step farther, and he set the ground for this new type of art called neoplasticity. And that is where he started just painting with rectangles and primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue. Okay. So the project that you're going to do for Mondrian is just simply this. You're going to grab a piece of white paper, which you already did, and you're going to put your blocks of color on. I recommend that you glue some colors in the corners first, and then you can connect them at the corner, and then you can lay the strips of black on top. Now, to alter this for younger elementary, this might be just fine for upper elementary. For lower elementary, to have thicker black lines, that will hide a lot of errors and a lot of unevenness. For upper elementary, you could use the skinny ones, but all of the lines that we have, the black lines, are thicker. They'll be perfect for upper elementary. For lower elementary, maybe 1/2 inch black strips would work best for them. Do you guys have any questions? Turn your white paper over to the back and write your first and last name. And then you can start by gluing your chunks of color into 1 or 2 corners and then adding some strips. You can also start putting some of those chunks of color corner to corner. You could lay it out and get an idea of what you want. There's also plenty of colors back there in the blue box. So help yourself if you need more black strips. Do you have any questions?
Is it filled up with shade?